you arrived on the crystalline world of Xylos. You came with an easel, a canvas, and a box of pigments. The natives of this place, the Xylans, were tall and elegant. Their bodies were sleek, like obsidian insects. They moved with a logic that felt cold. You told them you were an artist. They seemed to accept this simple explanation. The Xylans led you to a great, sterile chamber. It was a hall of observation with walls that hummed. They gave you food and water without a word. They watched you set up your canvas. Their multiple eyes blinked in slow, perfect unison. They could not see your true work. You were not a painter of pictures. You were a cartographer of unseen realities. Your canvas was empty. It was a perfect, silent void. To them, it was a primitive tool. To you, it was potential. It was the unwritten law of a new physics. The Xylans saw a simple human, a creature of chaotic emotion and crude art. They could not comprehend the map you were about to draw, a map they desperately needed but did not know existed. You stood before the blank canvas in the grand chamber. The most important members of the Xylan Council were present. They called themselves the Elder Ones. Their thoughts were broadcast as soft chimes, the air filled with the sound of polite, logical curiosity. They believed they were indulging a lesser being, a pet allowed to play with its simple toys. You picked up a single brush. Its bristles were made from the hair of a beast that dreams. You dipped it into a small pot of crimson pigment. The color was deeper than blood. It was the color of a newborn star's anger. You faced the canvas. You took a slow, steadying breath. Then you painted. It was a single, perfect line, a stroke of crimson from one edge to the other. To the Xylans, it was nothing, an arbitrary mark on a flat surface. But you felt the change in the room. A subtle pull, a slight shift in the weight of the air. You had just painted a thread of gravity. It was a force their advanced sensors could not even detect. They saw a line. You saw a cosmic string. The Elder Ones watched your work from their floating dais. They communicated in resonant frequencies. Their whispers were like the rubbing of crystal against crystal. Your strange painting was an anomaly, an unwelcome variable in their perfectly ordered world. They did not understand what they were seeing, but they felt its presence. The light in the chambers seemed to bend near your canvas. It was a subtle distortion, like heat rising from sand. Their optical sensors registered the anomaly. They could not explain it. The crimson line seemed to pulse with a faint energy. It was a silent hum just beneath their range of hearing. Logic was their god, and your painting was heresy. An elder named Jean approached you. He was their chief navigator. His carapace was polished to a mirror sheen. He moved with an arrogance born of perfect data. He looked at your canvas. He looked at your simple brush and pigments. The chimes of his thoughts were sharp with ridicule. He saw you as a fool, a maker of meaningless things. Elder Jean gestured to a massive star chart on the wall. It was a swirling, chaotic image, a place their ships never dared to enter. You call that art? His thoughts chimed. A true challenge is mapping the unnavigable. He pointed to the heart of the storm. Paint us a path through the ghost nebula, little artist. His counsel rustled in amusement. The challenge was a joke. It was impossible. You did not honor his mockery with a response. You simply turned back to your palette. You accepted his challenge in silence. The challenge was not a joke to you. It was an invitation, an opportunity to show them what you could really do. You began to prepare your other colors. You started mixing your special pigments. The Xylans watched, their curiosity tinged with disdain. They saw you blend powders and oils. They smelled strange, alien spices. They did not understand the true nature of your materials. You were not mixing colors. You were mixing forces. You created a cobalt blue that shimmered with electromagnetic potential. You swirled a gold that held the weak nuclear force. You blended a silver that contained the strong one. Your crimson thread of gravity was already on the canvas. These were the true colors of the universe. They were the forces that held reality together. The sidelands only saw glowing paint. You saw the building blocks of a new map. The Xylans brought you aboard their flagship. It was called the Logic's Edge, a fitting name for a vessel of such cold perfection. You stood on the bridge. Your canvas was placed before the main view screen. Outside, the ghost nebula churned. It was a storm of deadly radiation and swirling dust, a wall against all travelers. The crew was polite. They moved with quiet efficiency. Their thoughts were focused on their instruments. Their screens showed a maelstrom of chaos. Red warnings flashed everywhere. Their sensors screamed of gravimetric shears and plasma storms. They saw only death. You gazed into the same swirling chaos. You did not see death. You saw pathways. You saw the stable currents flowing beneath the storm. The universe was a river. You just needed to know how to see its flow. Your paints were ready. Your brush was in your hand. You were ready to show them the way. Your brush met the canvas once more. You dipped it in the shimmering cobalt. You began to paint the path. Your hand moved with a confidence that unnerved the crew. Your lines were clean and precise. They curved and twisted in ways that seemed to defy geometry. You were not painting on a flat surface. You were painting through dimensions. The Xylan crew watched your work. Their chimes became a low, confused hum. What you painted made no sense. It was a tangle of impossible shapes. Your blue line looped back on itself. It passed through the crimson line of gravity. It created intersections that could not exist in their space. To them, your map was the rambling of a madman. To you, it was a perfect representation of the truth. You painted the safe route through the storm, a route their star science said was impossible, a route their instruments insisted would lead to certain destruction. You did not look at their screens. You did not need them. You could see the path clearly. It was as beautiful and as obvious as a river flowing downhill. Elder Jean stood beside you. His polished carapace reflected the swirling colors of the nebula. He had watched your every move. His logical mind was screaming. Everything you did was wrong. Your map was an insult to 2,000 years of Xylan star science. Yet, a part of him was curious. The smallest part of him needed to know. He decided to call your bluff. He pointed a slender black finger at your canvas. He indicated a sharp, impossible turn you had just painted. There, his thoughts commanded. Pilot, follow that exact heading. Match the artist's cobalt line. The bridge fell silent. The pilot looked at John. His chimes were filled with alarm. Elder, our sensors show a dense asteroid field on that course. John did not waver. Follow the line, he repeated. It was a test of your strange art against his perfect data. The ship turned slowly. It aimed for a wall of rock and ice. The crew braced for impact. You simply continued to paint. You already knew the outcome. The ship glided forward, following the cobalt blue path. It entered the asteroid field. The rocks were enormous. Some were the size of small moons. They filled the view screen. The crew gasped. A massive asteroid tumbled directly toward them. Their collision alarms shrieked. But the ship did not move. It held its course on your painted line. The asteroid drifted past. It missed the ship by mere meters. They could see the ice-filled craters on its surface. Another one followed, and another. The ship sailed through the deadly dance unharmed. It did not even shudder. Your map was right. Their instruments, their logic, had been wrong. The mood on the bridge had changed. The quiet condescension was gone. It was replaced by something else, a deep, unsettling awe. The crew no longer watched the view screen. Their many eyes were fixed on your canvas. Your map was alive. It was a living thing. The colors on your canvas shifted and flowed. The cobalt blue brightened as you passed through areas of high energy. The crimson line deepened where gravity was strongest. Your map was not a static image. It was a real-time reflection of the nebula's hidden currents. The Xylons watched with a new emotion. It was an emotion their logical minds had long suppressed. They were watching you with fear. What were you? A being who could paint reality? A creature who could draw a safe path through a graveyard of ships? Your primitive art was more powerful than their most advanced technology. They had thought you a simpleton. Now they looked upon you as something more, something ancient and powerful, something they could not comprehend. You guided them deeper into the nebula. Your brush was a key, unlocking one impossible path after another. Soon, you approached the heart of the storm, the place their charts called the Void Singularity. Their instruments showed nothing there. A region of space-time so crushed that not even light could escape. A dead end. The ultimate wall. Their sensors could find no way forward. The storm raged on all sides. They were trapped. Jean looked at you. His usual arrogance was gone. His chimes were now soft with desperation. "Is this the end of the path, artist?" he asked. "Have you led us here to die?" You did not answer him. You simply picked up your final pigment. It was a pot of pure, void black. It was a color that drank the light. You dipped your brush. You turned to the canvas. Where they saw a singularity, you saw a doorway. You began to paint the nebula's core, not as a whole, but as a perfect stable archway. You painted a gateway. This was the final straw for Elder Jean. Seeing you paint a door in the heart of a singularity, it broke his mind. His entire life was built on the foundation of Xylon star science. He had navigated their fleets for over a century. He had trusted his data. He had trusted his logic. And now, a human with a paintbrush was proving it all wrong. He could not accept it. The painting was not a map. It could not be. It had to be a device, a weapon that bent reality to your will. He looked at the impossible gateway you painted. He imagined the power one could wield with such a thing. In a moment of pure, illogical panic, he acted. He lunged for your canvas. His claws extended. If he could control the painting, he could control this power. He could restore order to his universe. He could make sense of the madness. "The map is a danger," he chimed, his thoughts a chaotic mess. "It must be secured for the Xylon people." His pride and his fear had consumed him. His claws were centimeters from the canvas. The painted gateway pulsed with black light. As his fingers were about to touch the surface, the map responded. It did not attack. It did not defend. It simply revealed itself. The entire canvas flared with a brilliant, silent light. It was not a harmful blast. It was the light of pure information. The image you had painted, the entire ghost nebula, lifted off the canvas. It floated into the center of the bridge, a perfect, shimmering hologram of light and color. It hung in the air, slowly rotating. The crew cried out in shock and stepped back. The illusion was flawless. They could see the cobalt path you had painted. They could see the currents of gold and silver. And in its heart, they saw the void black gateway. It was real. It was there. The shimmering map in the middle of the bridge was a perfect mirror. It matched the real nebula outside the ship's view screen. And then, the impossible happened. As the holographic gateway rotated on the bridge, a real gateway shimmered into existence outside the ship. It hung in the blackness of space, a perfect arch of calm in the middle of the storm. You had not created it. You had simply revealed what was already there. You had painted the truth. The Xylons stared, their logical minds unable to process the sight. A stable, traversable gateway in the heart of a singularity. It defied every law they knew. You lowered your brush. You turned to look at Elder Jean. He was frozen, his hand still outstretched. His reflection stared back at him from his own polished carapace. A reflection of a being completely lost. You offered him no words. You simply gestured with one hand toward your living map. Then you gestured with the other toward the gateway outside. The choice was his. Trust the past, or step into the impossible future. Jean stood motionless for a long time. The only sound was the faint hum of the ship. He looked at his own dead instruments. Then he looked at your living, breathing map. The arrogance was gone. The fear was gone. All that remained was a profound sense of wonder. His life's work was not shattered. It was simply incomplete. He slowly retracted his claws. He turned to face his crew. Then he turned to you. In a gesture of ultimate Xylon respect, he bowed his head low. Your eyes see what ours cannot. His thoughts chimed. The words were heavy with a new humility. We have been blind. He then faced the pilot. Set a course, Jean commanded. His voice was clear and strong. Take us through the artist's gateway. There were no more questions. There was no more doubt. His people were ready to learn. They were ready to see the universe through your eyes. A new age of Xylon cartography was about to begin. The logic's edge moved forward. It passed through the gateway you had revealed. On the other side was not chaos. It was a calm, uncharted region of space. A new frontier opened to them in an instant. You spent the next few cycles teaching them. You taught John how to see the colors of force. You showed them how gravity sings in crimson, how electromagnetism flows in cobalt. You did not give them a new technology. You gave them a new perspective. They began to understand. The universe was not a set of cold equations to be solved. It was a masterpiece of infinite complexity, a work of art waiting to be witnessed. They learned to see the poetry in the physics. Your work on Xylos was complete. You left the map of the Ghost Nebula with them. It was a gift, a new Bible for their navigators. It now hung in the great observation chamber, a constant reminder that the greatest truths are often hidden from instruments. They are waiting to be seen by an open heart. You gathered your easel and your few remaining pigments. You found a small transport ship preparing to leave the system. You booked passage without any fanfare. The Xylons offered you riches and power. They offered you a permanent place of honor. You politely refused. Your journey was not over. You were a cartographer of the unknown. And there were so many empty canvases waiting for you among the stars. You had an endless journey ahead.